in the end, if the world is changing fast, you need to have a lot of curiosity to know what works, what doesn't work, how to experiment, how to get things done, how to learn about things which are not well documented or easy references there.
When anybody is starting their career in a time like this, right, when you're almost on the precipice of this big change, how do you build a career in that time?
When you are working on a seminal technology, as I call it. Now, AI is one of that seminal technology. So extreme amount of curiosity is needed, and that helps. Second thing is when you work on a new space, you will never be all correct 100% of time. There will be cases where you will fail. A new technology, while it is stressful, it is new for everybody. People are all learning together, and when they are all learning together, they acknowledge that things will not work out sometimes. It will fail. If you fail fast. You don't linger on it. You don't try to drag it and make it long. You just quickly figure out, test it, learn it. If it works, if it doesn't work, it's okay. Move on. Be comfortable with the concept of moving on. So failing fast if you have to fail, or experimenting fast.
Welcome to the Career Starter Kit. Today my guest is Tapojoy Chatterjee. Tapojoy is the Vice President and Head of Product at Swiggy Food and Dine Out Experiences. Before Swiggy, Tapojoy spent nearly a decade at Amazon, where he built the Amazon ads business in India, launched Mini TV, and even holds a US patent. From the boy who raised his hand to be part of the new computer lab, to the young category manager who raised his hand to switch to product manager, to the vice president of product who still makes time for side projects to learn more, Tapojoy is one of the most intentional people I know. In this rich conversation, you will hear about his 3-step playbook to stay ahead of paradigm shifts like AI, 4 habits that have compounded into career breakthrough, and what it takes to get promoted, whether you're in a small startup or a big org. If you want to learn from someone who's building a 10x career, this episode is for you. In the Career Clinic, Tapojoy answers your career questions about getting work done, including how to unblock work when the other team is not cooperating, how to say no at work without sounding defensive or difficult, and what your manager really wants to hear in an update. If you enjoy this episode, do follow us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. It helps support the podcast and it makes sure that you don't miss future episodes. With that, I bring you Tapojoy Chatterjee. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because whenever I speak to you, I'm always inspired by how thoughtfully and intentionally you've built your career. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about how your career started. What did you study? Where did you start out?
My career honestly started way back I think in school, somewhere around in my eighth or ninth standard. I come from a very relatively smaller towns in the country. A lot of my education happened in a place called Mandi Gobindgarh in Punjab. It's a small town between Ludhiana and Patiala. And one day, one of the teachers, she came back from, I think, US or UK. She got my school to, or principal to convince that we should have a computer at school and teach people computer programming. This is my eighth or ninth standard. And luckily she did that. I was one of the 5 students who enrolled in that course. I was one of the 3 students who finally finished that course, if you put it this way. And I had a gala time. I loved this thing called computer. I would just go, sometimes play games, sometimes do basics. We used to have a language called basics in terms of coding and build logic. And I think somewhere down the line there I realized I like this. This is fun. So that got me hooked. Then obviously engineering happened in NIT Jalandhar. I still kind of delved into computer programming. So when Samsung came in, the computer programming opportunity, I said, yeah, this is what I like to do. At some time around then to 2007-ish, I felt that, yeah, this computer coding I'm enjoying, but is it the real world? And the real world seems to be very different. People are buying soap, shampoos, going, finance, making money. The world is different. So at the first, then I said, okay, let me do an MBA. It seems like a good place to go and see the real world. You'll notice it's not planned; it's serendipity. I didn't sit for my cat or anything in 2006 in my engineering. I didn't. I just felt this engineering work is cool. So around 2008, I sat. Thankfully, got through Accelerate, did my MBA, had again a great time. Met my wife there. Then Excel, I went to ITC. ITC seemed really real world. Like the world started with Saharanpur, talking to distributors in Saharanpur, then Meerut, Dehradun. First time I realized that the world is not so black and white. There are grays. Was in ITC for 3 years. 3.5 years till 2013 November. Then took a break, and then Amazon happened. I joined Amazon as a category manager for accessories, wearable technology, those Apple watches, and routers. Somewhere down the line there, the bug started hitting me that hey, if I want to be somewhere like leader in the consumer tech world. I felt the consumer tech world is kind of trying to fulfill both my needs. My love for software, which I always had, and it is also helping me marry the real world experience and influence and interactions that I was craving for some time. So that's when the Amazon ads team was initially getting set up. I met a leader called Harsh Goel, great leader. Spoke to him. Somehow he got the confidence of punting on me that okay, let's do it. This guy can pick this up, even though I had no product management experience. Punt, I guess, worked. I joined his team in 2015, October, November, one of the early product managers, and got the opportunity to kind of build so many stuff in Amazon ads, work with so many teams in Beijing, in US, in India. This continued till 2018, 19, grew my career there, got promoted multiple times. Then I think there was a story of how India was growing with video advertisements. So me and my manager Harsh then felt, hey, we need to do something on video ads. That's when the genesis of mini TV happened. I was extremely grateful and lucky to be in the room where some of Amazon's great leaders like Jeff Blackburn, who used to handle Amazon Prime Video, then was there, and we evaluated the idea. It went back and forth, no, yes, no, yes. So it was a great learning. But then finally it got funded. So worked on the product and in marketing for mini TV, built it, launched it. It was crazy. It was almost like Amazon e-commerce is an app, Amazon Prime Video is a separate app. They're like two separate trains, and I'm trying to run a staircase or whatever bridge between the two. Then I worked with again leaders like Abhijit Kamra and Soma Reddy on the seller org. Worked on something called as Amazon Smart Connect and Smart Hub. And then Swiggy happened, took over the role first of food delivery, then dining, and then some of the new verticals like which are working up. Really proud of what the team has achieved, like food delivery on trains, food delivery in 10 minutes, dining vertical, which was almost had to be rebuilt from scratch after the acquisition of Dine Out, and some other very exciting stuff that is going to come up in the next few months. So, yep, that's been my journey. A lot of serendipity, then a little bit of trying to mold the river where it was trying to go.
If I draw that parallel to someone starting out today, we built our careers before the mobile internet penetration took off. At that point, it was just in the slides of the consultants, and today it's a reality. A lot of that today is like where we feel like we're in the early years of what AI is going to do to how business happens, to how consumers interact with business experiences, and multiple other touch points, right? I would love to know that now looking back, what do you think worked for you? And really, when anybody is starting their career in a time like this, right, when you're almost on the precipice of this big change, how do you kind of build a career in that time?
Couple of things worked for me and probably are needed when you are working on a seminal technology, as I call it. To me, these are sometimes seminal technologies. Like internal combustion engine was a seminal technology. Then internet adoption was a seminal technology. Now AI is one of that seminal technology. One, I think as a candidate, what I had and what worked one for me was a lot of curiosity. In the end, if the world is changing fast, you need to have a lot of curiosity to know what works, what doesn't work, how to experiment, how to get things done, how to learn about things which are not well documented or easy references there. So, a lot of curiosity in different fields, whether you are talking to consumers, trying to figure out what they like, or learning about the technology, how it will work, just looking at some other places, some other cohorts. So extreme amount of curiosity is needed, and that helps. Second thing is just have the confidence and the willingness that to fail if required. I think it's very important because when you work on a new space, you will never be all correct 100% of time. There will be cases where you will fail, and I have launched products which have failed because whatever the hypothesis was, it didn't work. So many of them, and but you should be comfortable with that because the good thing is a new technology, while it is stressful, remember it is new for everybody. It is new for you, it is new for your manager, it is new for your CEO of the company, it is new for the consumer as well. So, because it is new for everybody, people are all learning together, and when they are all learning together, they acknowledge that things will not work out sometimes, it will fail. You should be fine failing, you should be okay failing about when you're trying something new. Third thing, I think which also becomes critical for a new role or any of that is, and I'll break it. If you are an individual who's working on something, trying to figure out how to get your learnings fast, which is if you fail fast. You don't linger on it. You don't try to drag it and make it long. You just quickly figure out, test it, learn it. If it works, if it doesn't work, it's okay. Move on. Be comfortable with the concept of moving on. So failing fast if you have to fail, or experimenting fast. If you are a manager, building that cushion for them which allows them to fail and fail fast. I think that's, to me, are the three things which I feel really are needed and work for you if you want to kind of work in a new seminal technology. In summary, learning and be extremely curious, willingness to fail, and experimenting and failing fast if needed is what I would say are critical.
This sounds right? This makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, what does it look like in practice, right? So let's say you talk about learn and be curious, which I agree is super powerful as a tool to grow. Do you have an anecdote of how you practiced it, or just some best practices around how would somebody actually live out this principle?
So a lot of the learning comes from observation. It could now one is a formal way of observation. You research, you take an interview. But for me, it has hugely come from just watching people and how they do it. And you'll find it in day-to-day life. Like few years ago, I was watching my mother-in-law use internet, and I found that she asked me, Tapoja, can you order this for me? Now I said, why can't you order yourself? No, no, I always feel scared because it has money involved. What if my money goes away and it is all gone? Now, obviously, I share that feedback with the corresponding team in Amazon, but what's your opinion on these? You need to build more trust on payment. The just by simplifying user experience won't do because they need the trust on payment. To me, the biggest way of demonstrating curiosity is just by observing people around you, other than the secondary research and the hard brunt or the brute force you will put across your regular research activities. So that to me is one. On failure, how did I practice? I think you just went ahead and said, okay, I will take challenges. For example, one failure which we did was we launched something called as Amazon Video Ad, which is like playing video on the Amazon app as ads. We went bullish, we worked on it. It felt that will work because people will like videos. People like to engage with videos. They should spend more time. But when we launched it, we realized, okay, people like to play videos, but once they've seen the video, they already decided they want to buy the product or not. So once they decided they want a product, they didn't click and check the detailed page of the product. Now, when we went to the advertiser, they said, okay, but my detail page click rate is going down. Is this ad effective or not? Suddenly, we had to change the lens. We worked on it. We adapted the product. We said, okay, now what if somebody taps and goes to detail page? What if the engagement metrics not just is about click, but also a view? So you quickly adapted and tried to make it more and more palatable. So these are again experiences of learning something quick, figuring something out, and then adapting to it. And as a manager, the way to implement this will be is even like in my stand-ups. I used to have stand-ups in here and as well. I've asked people tell me it's okay. You share if you failed, but you're proud of what you learned. And so you just build that confidence about people that hey, it's okay to fail, but there is something you learned out of it, which is what you're going to apply next time, and that will help. See, failing as it is, everybody can fail, but if you have to pick something out of it. You have to learn something which you can change next time. So I think these are some of the ways I've tried to implement kind of practical examples of how things have worked out for me.
All of this makes sense, and I think very relevant for someone who might be in similar situations right now. Okay, so let's take a step back and let me ask you this kind of broader question, right? Like now that you look back at your early years, starting at ITC, transitioning to Amazon, what do you think you did well, and what do you think, is a piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
I think beyond the curiosity, a couple of other things which I have always found and helped me is, see, I've never believed in the concept that this is my role, this is your role, and the line has to end there. Amazon calls it ownership, Swiggy calls it founders mentality. When you work in technology which is changing so fast and people exactly don't know how things will shape up, as a career, you are best off being comfortable rolling up and sleeve and doing whatever is required to make your company or your project or your team successful. It doesn't have to be your role. For example, when I was doing, say, product management, at some time I would go and talk to principal engineers sitting in US and debate with on them on the actual stack of how it should be, and it and convince them. Similarly, when we were launching Amazon DSP, which is a third party ad showing up outside Amazon, I would go and talk to Money Control. I will go and talk to Eros and try to bring them on partnerships and bring back here. That's the second thing, is absolutely be comfortable of just doing whatever is required to make your business, your organization, your team successful, and not feeling that this is my territory and this is your territory. That is not going to help in this domain of consumer internet that we work in. One thing which I feel I could have done or learned earlier is the importance of delivering things on time and in quality. I think somehow when I worked in, I think I lost it in between. Like in sales, you put a lot of focus on delivery. You have to meet your numbers. There's no question asked.
It's very black and white.
It's very black and white, right? You have signed up, simple. You signed up 100 crore, you have to deliver 100 crore. It doesn't matter. But when I moved into the world of product for the first few years in a large company, I think sometimes Amazon allows you a cushion of being okay if things are a few days late or delivered. So I lost a little bit of that. I think I had to consciously regain that in my career. And I would urge it to anyone that your long term success always depends on credibility, because you get new projects, you get new ideas only when you're credible. Your credibility almost 100% depends on what you have delivered over the last few years or throughout your career. It is your delivery of results or continuous delivery of results which leads to more and more credibility. And that is what is going to give you more and more opportunity and opportunities to grow and grow. So they are very related. And I would have loved to have known it even earlier. I think I somehow lost it in between, is what I feel personally.
Very handy learnings, right? And super relevant. I absolutely agree that ownership, curiosity, delivering, like these are table stakes, right? And these are sort of like the sustainable, feel good things that long term careers are built on. What I feel like two things that work with this, right? Taking bets. Taking bets on
Hmm.
kind of what you work on and what you want to build for the future, right? Because when you work on sectors which are not established, right, where literally your role is building the future, in the early years, it's all about delivering. But over a period of time, it's also about developing that judgment of what is the right bet to take. And I think being intentional about that judgment is important. If I look at my career, I think that's something that I've not always done well. There's this book called The CEO Factory by Sudhir. Basically, he said that the first 5 to 7 years, the differentiating skill is execution. Then, from like, let's say 6 to 10, and I think these numbers are indicative, the differentiating skill is your ability to influence. And then beyond that first decade, the differentiating skill is through judgment. And I think that that judgment is built through execution, is built through experience. So I agree that I think those are like the foundational skills that will always hold you good. For me, from my journey, I think the only other thing that I would add, like as an essential in your toolkit, is also being intentional about the judgment, right?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing this up. For example, and when I say failing and okay to fail, I think some of the bets I took in my life, they worked for me. Now, I could have said, hey, I don't know how this product management will work. Let me stick to category management. I was getting rated well and continue that career. That could
Perfectly
have been
fine
gone like
choice.
that. But I said, okay, it's a perfectly fine choice. And I remember one leader saying me that, hey, you need to zero in on something at that time. That why do you want to flip from a category role to a product role when you've already worked for 5 6 years? But I took the judgment because I felt, one, seems something which I would like to do. Two, the organization which I was thinking of joining, which is the Amazon ads, had a lot of things seems to be going right for them. India as a country has is okay to see ads if you are reducing the price for them. So it was playing in the space where for me it seemed like a good bet. It was a risky bet. It may have bombed, but it worked out for me. That bet worked out for me, and my career kind of relatively did well. So I think these bets are important. Some of your bets may not work. It's absolutely fine. But as a person, you need, if you think you want to have non-linear growth, you should be okay to take those bets, and it's fine if some of those fail. It's not a big deal for me. So I think I totally agree with you on taking the bet and be okay to fail if required in that space. So I think other thing also, now that we're speaking with, I remember what I've done well parallelly is, I also felt sometimes in the corporate world you don't always learn on the skills. Things are already there. And I felt, say, for example, I was not doing, I wanted to learn a little bit of app development. So actually, off my work, I have built a few apps. I found a person in Gujarat I knew who was a software developer, built apps, gaming apps with him. Now also, I have a friend who works in AI, and we kind of test something on the AI. I think I'll also recommend that to people, that don't depend on your job only to train you and get you ready. I can tell you half of my learning has come from building those apps in the consumer experience, in terms of how analytics work, how a Google stack works, how Play Store works, and all of that. And now I'm learning a lot on LLMs by working on some of these AI projects. Don't restrict yourself what your job does to you. Whether you're a software developer, whether you're a product manager, just find out ways which can help you learn, even though they're not part of your job and outside your corporate world. Go ahead. It'll always be beneficial.
I think that's a great example of practicing curiosity. What are some of the ones that you're working on right now? You mentioned AI and LLM, so I'm curious what are some of the hypotheses you're building out?
So I'll keep my investment ones out because they're anyway there. I think the ones which I'm working outside that is, one is using an AI to help people just take interviews. For example, when I speak to so many students, and I love interacting with students in colleges, lot of them suffer from anxiety. Am I doing well? Am I giving good interview? Am I giving bad interview? And I felt people hesitate to ask friends and family to give interviews. There's a thing there. So why not create an app which can just record your interview and give you response? I think Udemy does it, and I think some one company got funded also. So that's one area which I am actively working on. Then little bit of work is happening on the design space. Can I reduce a PM's dependency on the designers and create base level mocks and wireframes from a PRFAQ or a PRD, or BRD as you may call it. So that's the second space. These are two things which is keeping my mind fully occupied right now outside my regular work that I
Very
do.
interesting. And you mentioned just getting together with a friend and doing this. If somebody hears this and they say, okay, I want to do this too, how do they get started on something like this?
So first, just get a sense of which domain you want to work in. That's number one. That has to be clear in your mind. Once you've got the domain, you get very clear is, are you trying to do it for learning, or are you trying to do it for make money? Because it's very different. Your learning stack can just be a repetition of something which has already happened in the space. You don't stress yourself on that. If you're trying to make money, then you have to be very clear on what the money source will be, how will, so get that clarity. Once you've done that, then depending upon your profile, you're an engineer, you need a designer, find that in your network. Either find that in your network if you have it in your school, college, these schools, or there are some of these co-founder network websites. Go there, network with people. I found a few people who I worked with from there as well, with the right expectations. So find that person. Generally, these are non-monetary agreements. You don't have to pay anything because you both are working in a common space. So get on the non-monetary agreement and then just dive your fingers. There's nothing. Just go for it. Like, start writing, start building, keep failing.
Very inspiring.
But yeah, remember, this has to happen. This will take time. This is not something you can just do it and say it will not, it'll happen and so on. So if you're working 50, 60 hours a week, which means your Saturdays, Sundays will go into it. So be mindful of this and do it intentionally, so that you don't get into it and then realize, oh, I'm not able to give time.
Since you mentioned time, are there any best practices about protecting your time, protecting your energy, just using your time well that you've, kind of picked up in your kitty over the years?
See, I'm not going to give the framework. I think there are many
Yeah.
framework,
Yes.
important, relevant, and impactful. I think generally what I have found is, in my organization, in my team, if I think my team can do it on their own, or my people who reports to me can manage on their own, I always let them manage on their own and have more of a check-in process to do it till they need it. I think we as leaders always have this tendency of trying to be everywhere, trying to be in every meeting, trying to learn. I think I have had to consciously move out of that from that space, and be comfortable saying no. I think second thing, when I say we're comfortable saying no, it's not just no to your time, it's about no to your team, your no to your stakeholders where you think it is not going to add value, because you saying no saves your team a lot of time. So and Steve Jobs has this beautiful video where he says you can focus by saying no. When you say no 5 times, you're basically creating time for that one thing to focus on. So just be comfortable saying no. I was not comfortable saying no. I had to build it. I think my childhood and my upbringing made me feel that you should say yes to everything and do everything, whatever is in front of you, right? It was the habit. So I had to consciously build that habit and say, okay, this is not important. I don't think we need to do it now. Saying no. And that saying no is not just as a manager, as an individual, you can say no. You can say no to projects which you think are not excited about. You are absolutely saying no to things which you think you don't have, don't want to do right now. There's nothing wrong in that. So say no is how you manage time. Third, find your own productivity cycle. What I mean by that is, I have found I am very good with thinking and deep activities in first half till 11 to 12. So I try to set up all deep activities in first half, where I have to think for a long term plan or evaluate something has to be done or take a decision whether this project needs to be done or not. Wherever my particular part of the brain is used, which requires a lot of thinking. So second half, I focus on more execution activities, project tracking, speed, maybe one-on-ones if I regularly want to do with somebody. And I've kind of built my calendar accordingly. So you figure out what works for you. And I have found that very effective. You have to just consciously make it happen. But I've generally found that very effective is you find your most powerful thinking time, and kind of optimize your calendar accordingly. So that's on the work side. On the personal side, I think you'll have to be clear what you want. I don't think you can achieve everything. I forgot her name, but I think she has put this beautiful thing which says you have to choose between family, friends, health, and career or money. If you put this, you can't say I want all three and be absolutely perfect in all
At the
three.
same time.
You'll have to have a prioritization order at the same time. You'll have to have a prioritization order and be very comfortable with that prioritization order. Choose that prioritization order and mold it. That's the world we live in today. I have chosen family, I have chosen health, and I have chosen career or money. My friends has taken a backseat. That's what it is. So you just have to be comfortable with that choice and plan and act on it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have a similar approach, and you have to accept the trade off, right? There's consequences to every choice. How did you start leveling up? Were there any people or incidents that were catalysts in your early career?
One thing which I always say about leveling up, and it sounds generic, is you learn by two ways. You learn by making mistakes, or you learn by seeing others' mistakes. Latter is much less costly, right? To me, I think fortunately, when you work in a company like Amazon or now Swiggy, you see so much of it's a large organization with such great peers around you. You learn a lot by just observing people around you of what they're doing. I have learned from my managers, obviously, of how they communicate, interact, evaluate. I have learned peers on how they build trust around them and prioritize things and get things done. I have learned from people in my team of how they communicate with me or get things done and learn from them. So you learn from all three spectrums. There's a person in my team called Shavik in Swiggy. I have learned a lot on how to go into nuances of consumer behavior. And despite having worked in this field for so many years, I when I interact with him, a lot of times I learn something new, and it's a great learning and so I love interacting with him because I am learning something from them. I have learned something from CEOs of the world is how to get execution done, like how to get things fast, how to build that tenacity that you never let go. You can't. It's a race. You have to always win. So I think your learning is almost 360 degree, and this is 360 degree. It includes your team as well. So be very comfortable learning from people around you and just observing them of how they do things. I am 100% like 80-90% of the learning should come that way, and that is how I've leveled up. If you ask me, like keep observing, be present in the meeting. Sometimes just be a fly in the wall to see how things are working out. See, this is my philosophy in life. In life, you get this step staircases. Think of it like this, which are these opportunities. Now, the delta between that opportunity versus not getting that opportunity could be very small. Could be say between like 1.01 and 0.99. Very small opportunity. But if you are able to grab that opportunity, move up, then it opens up more staircases. Another 0.01, another 0.01. So over a period of time, they compound and create a very differentiating non-linear career. While if you don't take those or let go of those, it goes down. So how do you ensure you take care? One, you have to be a little bit paranoid of opportunities in front of you. Yeah, it's a strong word, and you have to constantly think of how do are you improving yourself and evaluating yourself. Maybe ask every week, what did I learn this
Hmm.
week? What did I
Hmm.
improve this week? And then use these steps of observation, peers, learning, training, what a curiosity, and make that happen. To me, that is how you I have seen work. It is obviously easier said
Yeah.
than done, but just being mindful and paranoid of every small opportunity, because every opportunity gives you a canvas to grow more later, and they compound uh, in the long period.
One follow up is, do you have a practice around reflection? You mentioned kind of reflecting on how much have I learned this week. Do you have any practice around that for yourself?
So my practices had gone into a bit extreme. I've had the habit of
Hmm.
journaling now. So I journal every night, and there's a personal journal and then there's a professional journal, and I write what I'm proud of today and what I did something. You need not go into that extreme and become a boring 40-year-old.
The
That's what I
intentional
felt.
boring 40 year
But you
old.
can have your yeah, but you can do it
Hmm.
once a week is
Hmm.
what I felt. Don't wait for your organization's appraisal timeline to
Hmm.
reflect. That is
Hmm.
too late
Hmm.
in my mind to reflect. Create your own check-in. Like maybe some people do it is they use their manager one-on-ones as a
Hmm.
reflection check-in. Do that. Like spend your 10-15 minutes with your manager and say, hey, I think I did learn this, I worked on this, this is what I'm observing.
Yeah.
What is your take? And let her respond, and you guys have a good meaningful conversation. So that you figure out your own
Yeah.
mechanism. Could be once a week where you write for yourself if that works for you. Could be using your manager check-in if that works for you. Just use that, and but don't wait for your organization to tell you what you are doing
I
good
have
or bad.
a
It's just
I
too
have an
late to know.
anecdote to share here, and this is like for me, it was very transformational, right? So, a lot of times, and I remember when you're younger, right, you can sometimes be cynical about performance reviews where you feel like, oh, this is a pre decided and it is like just a documentation exercise. And I remember I was doing market work with this person who was at that time like one of the top performers in the org. And he said this to me. He's like, I've never had like a performance review conversation with a manager. And I was like, how does that possible? Like you're top rated and like what does that even mean, right? And he's like, I have never felt the need to have a conversation because there was no net new information to discuss. I was so regular in my check ins. My manager knew exactly what I was working on. They could give me feedback in real time. So basically, you don't leave it for the end, right? And for me, it was like it felt like a very stark example. But having practiced that now, I think I'm a big advocate for it. And I think it's similar to what you're saying, right? Which is performance appraisals are almost like a lagging indicator. And you don't wait for them for course correction. At least for course correction of execution for whatever you're responsible for in that cycle, right? You have to have much more real time feedback, check ins, reflection to kind of keep course correcting, keep figuring out what you can do better, keep tweaking your approach.
Exactly. And just I'll also put a manager's lens and try to empathize. Don't go to your manager and ask her, tell me what my feedback is. And what I mean by that is, see, you are one of the 5 or 6 people the manager is working with, or at a direct level. The manager also has 50 other things in her mind where she has to get some done. She may not always have feedback for you. It is think of it like you are the steward of your these conversations. So you go to her and ask her, hey, I think I did this well. Are you do you agree or disagree? I think I want to improve on this thing. Do you agree or disagree? So you be the steward, you bring the points to your manager, and don't like some people make this mistake. They'll go and say, hey, my manager is not giving me feedback. Okay, I asked him or her, tell me something, and she didn't have much to say. Empathize that she has other things that she may not be able to do justice to all of that. So you do it, you take the reins in your control, and you say every time go in with your own point to discuss and debate and make it more and more productive for you. It is your career, you choose what do you want to
Yeah,
discuss?
absolutely agree. I think this is again one of those things which moving to the manager side of things, right, is an I think is a learning is that you need to help your manager help you. They are also a person trying to do the best job. They are also, have more on their to-do list than hours in the day. So you have to intentionally work on helping them help you. And I guess to my question of leveling up, right? Like, how can you start to find ways to help your manager help you? And I think the point you made about instead of asking open ended questions, making it multiple choice is a very simple way to kind of reduce their cognitive load, help them be more helpful to you in the feedback they give you. This is true for feedback. This is true for when you're asking them to make a decision, when you're asking them for help, right? Instead of just like an open ended, like, help me, say, here's option A, here's the option B, here's option C, here's what I'm thinking are pros and cons, here's what I'm thinking of leading with. Do you think this makes sense? So, completely agree.
I just want to point one thing, Anana. Yeah, that you spoke of leveling up and manager check-in. I think one more important thing on leveling up is one, always figure out what the leveling process in your organization is. Number one, and be aware of it and work towards it. Now, let me explain what I mean. See, if you're in a startup, your leveling process generally is what your manager or the CEO thinks of you. So be very pragmatic and clear of what he or she really wants and work on that. Focus on that and be very sharp. You don't, in such a world, you don't need to disproportionately put a lot of effort on building a network and strong relationships from a promotion perspective. You may need that to get your work done, but you don't need that from a promotions because you need that one person to say yes to you. If you're working in a large organization like an Amazon or a Google or a Microsoft or anywhere, your promotion process is more egalitarian in the sense a lot of people are involved in it. Your manager is just a conductor of the process in a lot of the cases. So you need to then help yourself by building all the elements that your manager will need. If you need more feedback, ensure you have the right communication with the stakeholders. They are aware of your work. They are aware of what is the impact you are creating. You have doing those one-on-ones with them in addition to your manager. So I think use these check-ins to get a sense of what the process in your organization is, and then figuring out what all you need to do to level up. I think a lot of people struggle. I've seen in the beginning. For example, in an organization like Amazon, people just completely become 100% depend on their manager, and they think, hey, why is my manager not promoting me? He or she can't promote you because he or she is just a conductor. She has to present something to the panel, which needs content, which needs other people's feedback, and the panel agreeing to it. So it won't work in that world. You will get stuck despite doing and having a very good productive ecosystem or equation with your manager. Vice versa, if you're in a startup and you are building very nice ecosystem feedback around you, but you've not been productive in terms of what your CEO wants you to do, you may still struggle. Just be very clear of your organization's leveling place and be mindful and intentional about getting those stuff done.
Any mistake or challenge from your early years which in hindsight helped shape your career?
So Amazon, one of the project there was what is called as Amazon DSP, which is a demand side platform. I think when we were building it, we started around in 2017-18. I was little bit naive of organizational dynamics and organization, how things can get done or not get done and get stalled. So I went to a leader and I proposed this to her that I want to build this for India and make it happen. I went and this is the worldwide team, US team, and I wanted to get things done. So I proposed it to her. What happened for the next 7-8 months was she or her team would find one reason or the other not to make it happen. This engineering is wrong, or this is wrong, or that is wrong, or whatever. And later I've realized that she also wanted to get this built as a product, but she was not building it, but she was stalling the whole thing. For me, that was a learning that, hey, the world is not so black and white in a very crude way. As organizations get large, you need to be clear of the motive of the other person at any point of time and figure out what can work. So what I did later, a year of wastage later, I said, you guys go and be the product owner. I'm absolutely fine. My team will support you, but the final, what does she want? She wants her leadership to think that it is her product. My leadership cares about building it. I said, okay, you put your name, I'll get it done. And then when that negotiation happened, the product got built. So I think the biggest learning or mistake, which is the wastage of 1 year for me, was be upfront in asking your other party in terms of what they really seek. There's nothing wrong in what's in it for you. Nobody's here altruistically to solve problems for you. Being very blunt and ask what's in it for you, then figure out a way where you can make it happen. It is not just for negotiations outside an organization, it is for negotiation inside an organization as well. And be very upfront and vocal. Once you become that, you'll solve a lot of your problems when you ask.
Yeah, makes sense. On that note, we're going to switch to career clinic. I'm going to share with you some situations with young professionals I've shared with her. And we would love to hear if you've been in a similar situation, how did you tackle it, or just how would you kind of recommend someone approach it in their life. So this person says, Dear Career Clinic, I'm seriously stuck right now. My manager and I talked about this goal where I'm supposed to work with the logistics team to reduce delivery times for our clients. And it sounded all good and super clear. Like, of course, this should be a priority. But when I try to get things done by moving with the delivery partner team, the person I'm supposed to work with is saying that, this is not a priority for us. So now I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? My boss keeps asking me for progress, but it's like, how do I make progress when the other team isn't even working on this? And I don't want to sound like I'm just making excuses or throwing anyone under the bus, but I'm not clear. How do I get everyone on the same page without sounding like I'm just pointing fingers?
I think this person's kind of caught in the middle, and this person is also trying to solve everything on his or her own, which is creating a lot of pressure. Any scenario where you've been given a task where your metric wants to get something done, but you have a partner team which is not aligned, two, three things has to happen. First, understand what your partner team's success or motive or metric looks like. Number one, like what are their top metrics they want to move? So in this logistic team, are the metric on overall time? Do they have a metric on quality of delivery? Write down those set of metrics. Number one. Number two, see if you are influencing any of those metrics positively when you are going to them. So if they have an overall goal of reducing time and your project of time is going to contribute to 5% of 6% of, figure out if they are able to and kind of represent that information very clearly to them that hey, you have an overall goal of this, I am bringing this, it should help you in your 5 to 6%. Do you still don't want to do it or not want to? That's the easy part. Then you need to figure out, okay, if this decision is not at their level, then this decision has to happen at a slightly higher level. What is that convergence point? I'm sure at this partner team and your team at some point will converge in the organization, which means that convergence leader, whoever is that, needs to take a decision here of where the debate or delta is. So how do you do that? Which means you need to now start making your manager and her manager or upstream till the convergence accountable to help you. You should not take it all on yourself, because if you take it all on yourself, you'll be stuck for it forever and doing unnecessary stress to yourself. So how do you do that? How do you make them accountable? One, write down both sides story. Their goal is this, their metric is this, my metric is this is my timeline, they can't do it, I need to do it, this is what the effort required to do it. Now these are the choices. Either we do this requires extra cost of doing this, which somebody has to fund, or we need to deprioritize something else which needs to happen in this case. Take it to your manager, because now it is her or her manager responsibility to build that case to the convergence leader. Take to the convergence leader. Say if the convergence leader is able to take a decision or is taking a decision. In the end, it is her decision to take. If the decision is in your favor, you've solved it. If the decision is not in your favor, see if there are creative ways to solve it. For example, in engineering, we call it, can I give my engineers to make it work, all of that, and still make it happen? There is nothing wrong. Can I find external folks to get it done and assume the cost somewhere? So see if there are creative ways to solve it. If you can't solve it, if all the leadership is aligning, then you just communicate to the clients. I think in the end, the point is, don't take stress of an indecision of a quagmire. Your action should be either influencing your partner and getting it done. If the answer is no, it should be about making your leadership accountable so that they take the decision and move it ahead. So pass the stress from you to your managers is how I would. And one important thing in this escalation, you are actually escalating, but you're not escalating as a complaint. You're escalating a situation. You are escalating a situation saying, hey, this is pros, this is cons, this is what they need to do, this is what I need to do. You're escalating an end-to-end scenario so that your partner team continues to have the trust that you have acknowledged their problem while you are escalating. If I have to summarize, I'll only say escalate a situation. Do not escalate a person. And that's what really solves the problem.
Okay, the next one. So this one is about how to update leadership, how to update your manager, different stakeholders. Dear Career Clinic, I'm seriously confused about how much I'm supposed to share during leadership reviews. My skip level keeps drilling me on the tiniest details. And when I prepare for that, my manager's guidance is that you're sharing too much, just give them the high level overview. I don't know which one is it. And then I end up feeling like I'm never getting it right. Do I need to share all the details or just the big picture? And then how do I figure out what to tell my manager versus what leadership wants to know? Because right now I feel like I'm just getting it wrong with both of them. I think there's two parts to it, which is one is like how to align what to present in leadership reviews, and also a judgment of what to update the manager versus leadership, right? Different stakeholders.
I think it's a great problem, and goes back to that statement which my one of my previous managers made, is your analysis and your work has to be exhaustive. Your communication has to be comprehensive. Now, how will we do that here? So this is what I used to do. Now, I will have stakeholders on different spectrums of the journey. There will be a stakeholder who just wants to quickly summarize what is the business impact and move on in life. While there might be a stakeholder who probably wants to drill deep and say, hey, what technology am I using? Why is what stack, what services, all of it. The way I found it helpful is use what I call a tiered approach. Your tier one is first half of your communication. Say you're writing an email as a status update. Your tier one is always summarization, always about overall metrics, numbers, goals, which anybody, any even a CEO of the organization, if he or she wants to get an update, can open this on a mobile. Most people check emails on mobile, by the way. So do that on mobile and move on in life. After that tier is when you start adding more information, which are tappable and clickable. It means you can hyperlink to a internal Wikipedia or an internal document or an internal Google Doc or anything. If somebody wants to know more, please tap and provide that information. I have generally found that strategy very helpful because it solves both problems. Your managers worry that hey, you are making it too exhaustive if people can't go through. By keeping a very clean, crisp first half or one half of a page which talks about the most important elements so that people can read and move out. And your some of your stakeholders or leaderships desire to probe in by also delving into that by tapping and going to somewhere a second page to read it. See, it's not new. Your books have been having footnotes and endnotes for ages. So you're just taking that stream and trying to apply it in your medium of communication, and that's it. Like this, just I think that should
Yeah,
solve
I
your
love that
problem in
framework
this
of tier
case.
one and tier two updates and analogy of footnotes, right? And appendices. Use them for like someone who needs to know more. Let's see what this person's asking. So they're saying, Dear Career Clinic, I'm feeling super frustrated. I'm constantly following up with people to get stuff done, and it's always the same story tomorrow. And I get it, everyone's busy, but my problem is that my work is getting delayed and my manager's breathing down my neck. And the worst part is that these are people that I get along with, so I don't want to sound like I'm bossing them around, telling on them. But I also need to get the work done, otherwise, I'm the one who's in trouble. So, how do I get people to take this seriously without ruining my work relationships? I can relate to this sentiment, right? Where you
Right.
feel like you need your friends to do the work, and how do you actually do it?
Yeah, I think it goes back. One of the beautiful things in corporate is you always talk about, communicate about situations, one, and two, perception is very important in the corporate world. So people want to maintain their positive perception amongst leadership. So I think in this scenario, I'll do two things. One, first of all, to get anybody to work on something, you need to get an agreement on a goal with them. And a goal has a clear metric, what they will achieve and by when they will achieve. Anything which doesn't have a date and what is to be achieved is, as what Jeff Bezos calls it, good intention. It never works. So you need to first get that. If you are not getting that, again, you need to escalate the situation as we spoke of in the previous instance and get that. Whether that's the first step, whether you escalate the situation and get that or you get that on your own. Once you've done that, the second step is communicating proactively about the situation. So, for example, what I would do is I've got somebody to write a goal, I've got somebody to write a date. I would literally every at a set frequency, if it's so important every day, if it is mildly important every week, set the very clear owners of the goal, which is called as RACI in terms, and share it in a email update with all the relevant stakeholders, which includes my manager, their manager, and anybody who's involved or influenced or impacted by this project. And the reason we need to do it without any fail is, if anybody is impacted by it, they can ask a question on that email publicly, which will make your partner more and more accountable, because as I said, nobody likes a negative perception where it is showing red against their accountability that this is not on track. So you will have to be very comfortable in presenting the status of this situation every week, or whatever the right frequency is for you to get it done. If you are seeing inaction despite doing that, it is your responsibility to actually set up a follow-up meeting with the right stakeholders, with your manager, till the convergence. Again, the convergence is important. Till the convergence of why this situation is delayed, so that they can pinpoint if there is any new change in timelines or anything else is required on that front. I think if you are able to take these three steps, you will either solve the problem or you will not have the problem, because the leadership will say, hey, I don't want to do this project anymore. Either of the two will happen, which means your stress will be gone.
Makes sense. When we say the convergence point, that is basically the leadership level at which the two teams have common reporting, right?
Yes,
Got it.
exactly.
Okay. Now we're going to the fourth situation. Now, this is a skill you mentioned, the ability to say no is what kind of preserves your time for the most impactful work. And I think this is a skill which everybody needs, and disproportionately a product manager. So here the situation is, dear career clinic, I really struggle with saying no or with disagreeing with people at work. There was this meeting the other day where everyone was agreeing to this idea that sounded a little off to me, but I couldn't bring myself to speak up. And then sometimes someone asks me to help with something when I'm already drowning in work, and I just say sure, but because I don't want to sound unhelpful, but then I end up stressing out and overcommitting. So how do I say no without sounding like I'm just being difficult or not a team player?
I think two things I found in this example. One, the ability to say your point in a public forum, and second is saying no. Now they may be same or they may be different. The first, I think all of us suffer from imposter syndrome. I have wasted so much of my time or energy because of imposter syndrome. It is always there. I am yet to see a person who doesn't have it. Let me be blunt. So if you feel you are the only one, rest assured everybody in that room is also having it at some point in time. So it is there. It is always going to make you ask questions to yourself: is this the right answer? Is this the wrong? Way I've tried to acknowledge it and work on it is the realization of the point that in your first part of your career, you are evaluated a lot on fact and knowledge. So you can speak when you have the knowledge, when you are very clear and about it, but then speak. Your second part of your career, which starts after 10 years, you are also evaluated on what your opinions are and how you're able to navigate the organization in the right direction. Now, they are not facts, they are opinions. They are based on limited facts but a lot of ambiguity. So your judgment, right? So your ability to say is more important in that forum, rather than saying what is you think is 100% fact. Your career starts depending upon you being vocal appropriately. Acknowledge that fear that it will be remaining, it will remain, but then speak after acknowledging that fear, whatever is in your mind. And the way I have done sometimes is, towards the end of the way or in my journal, I write what are the areas where I felt fear but I spoke up, and just measure it. Because when you write that over a period of time, that starts giving you confidence that I spoke up. So it becomes a habit that you acknowledge. The fear won't go away. You just acknowledge the fear and you speak. It's harder than what I'm saying, but if you are able to do it, practice it, I can vouch for it that when you've spoken 5 times, the sixth time will be easier. So that's one. Now on no. I think when you say no, the problem is not saying no. Problem is how you say no. And there are two elements to that. One is the tonality, and second is the rationale of saying no. Why do you not want to? See, if you say no in the right tone, which is acknowledging the other team's requirement, that's one problem solved. Second comes is on rationality. I think a lot of times I have made mistakes is initially is I would say no and that's it. It's my job. I won't be able to do it. That doesn't help. Multi-metric environment like we all work in, there will always be conflict of metrics and you will never know all the elements. The other side may not know all the elements. If you just say no like that bluntly, you will struggle because they will not realize and they will be unhappy. Say no with a reason. why you can't do that. What is your choices which is making you choose something else over this? A lot of times it's just a question of outsourcing the decision to you, them almost. Like, hey, I have these 16 things. Do you really want me to do this or do you want me to do this? Half the time they will themselves say, no, I think you should just do this. So just outsourcing the decision. As a product manager, I used to get a lot of requests to build so many products. It's normal, right? People will have ideas and they'll be products. So over a period of time, I built a framework for some of them. Can you just tell me the feasibility, desirability, and viability of your idea? And give a score of 0 to 10 when you give it to me in terms. So when that person did that own analysis, she was able to come back and say, hey, I don't think my idea has enough desirability. So automatically she backed off, which is fine. You're outsourcing your decision making to the person who's making the request. That's one way. Second way, if you still have to make a decision, explain the rationale that I am doing this because of these reasons. If you still want me to do something, then it needs a change in priority, and we need to again either go to a convergence or go speak to this person and sit together and change the priority. That's it. I think to me, if this person is able to do these two things, they should be able to solve this problem of both imposter and saying no. And saying no is fine. It is our
Yeah.
job in our corporate
Yeah.
world to say no.
I agree. I actually recently wrote about this and I agree with everything that you said. And the way I think of it is almost like almost everything that we execute is a hypothesis, right? You're going to execute something and you have some hypothesis, it's going to get you to this result. That hypothesis is based on your understanding of reality, right? Some assumptions. Now, like you're saying, in this multivariable world, the other party may not have visibility into your, like, you guys have different understandings of reality, therefore you think different hypotheses are going to get you. So one, agree on the goal and then carry them along in the decision so that you align on your understanding of reality, right? When you exchange that information, either they will change their mind and say, hey, yes, this hypothesis makes more sense, or you will learn something new. And then at the end, you can kind of decide which approach to go with, or like just agree to disagree, but be much more aware of where the disagreement comes from, right? Where is the view of the world different? And then you can learn about it and update your learnings on both sides.
Yep, makes sense. Totally agree with you.
On that note, we head into our final segment, which is called Fast Track. Now, this is our version of the rapid fire round. So, here I'm going to ask you specific questions about either like your best practices you have, situations that you handle, and just share whatever is top of mind for you in terms of learnings or best practices. So,
Okay.
the one learning that has unlocked growth for you,
Deliver results all the time.
be output oriented. Makes sense. A small habit that has made a big difference in your career.
I would say my journal, but it's very boring to implement every day. So must figure out your speed and frequency.
I agree. I think it's not easy to have that level of discipline, but it's a game changer if you're able to. Okay. The most underrated skill, Ali, in your career?
Execution, and a lot of people don't talk about it, but just getting stuff done, like whatever is needed, just getting stuff done. And to me, people talk about it later. I value employees in my
Yeah.
team who show that ability to just
Yeah,
get
I
stuff
agree. This
done.
is what Sudhir Sitapati has mentioned in his book. In the first 5 years, it is execution. A sign that someone is ready for more responsibility.
When they ask me,
One thing young professionals should do more often.
I think sometimes persevere. Your desire to grow and the opportunities that come for you, the desire is always comes first than the opportunities. So sometimes just persevere, the opportunities will come. It's okay to little bit to wait a little bit. Things will fall. So have that patience and perseverance when you have a desire to make something happen.
One tip for effective meetings is
Share the agenda in the beginning. Don't hesitate to bring the meeting back to the focus if it is deviating.
your go to strategy for handling tough feedback.
I look for patterns. So my style of evaluating feedback is I don't, to be honest, react on individual feedback. So I look for patterns. If there is a pattern, then I will absorb and react. If there is one off, it is a little bit like that India 36 all out in Adelaide. Can happen. It's part of life.
Fair enough. The best way to ask for help at work.
Ask it.
Don't
Please
overthink
ask
it,
it.
just ask.
Just ask.
Agree.
Yeah.
How to handle a boss who micromanages.
Tell them in your one-on-one. Find out in your one-on-one. Let them know that you feel that you are able to do this job. Do you still want to cover every aspect? And two, make them accountable for some of the things when they micromanage. When you make people accountable for some of the things, they automatically backtrack.
You mentioned this is something that you've intentionally had to work on. So, what's your tip about a simple way to become a better communicator at work?
Two things. One, just writing, even if in bullet points, what you want to speak. So my response is a lot of brute force, which is the brute force of preparing what you want to speak early and writing it down of in the bullet points or whatever is the style for you. Number one. Number two, when you write it down, try and ensure that it is a story which is linear, which can be followed linearly in general. What I mean by that is each paragraph should lend to the next paragraph if you're writing something or speaking something. Humans struggle to absorb non-linear conversation. It looks good in movies, but not in your day-to-day life. So write down linearly with each paragraph kind of connecting to each other and tell one story at a
Chris
time.
Nolan can pull it off, not us. Your number one networking tip.
If you don't like it, it's okay not to do it for the first 10, 15 years of your career. It's okay. If you are doing well in your career, if you are doing your job well, if you are demonstrating output, network will happen. Network will come to you in a form. If you like it, please enjoy it and make maximum out of it.
Cool.
It's okay.
And the last one, and I'm so curious because you're a person like I love your book recommendations, you know this. So we ask everyone like one book or blog that everyone should read. And of course, your book coming out in May is on that list, but something else.
Yeah, I think if you want to be a product manager, I would always talk about the lean product playbook. But if you really want to learn a little bit of psychology and human psychology and how it impacts people decision, there's a book called The Power of Moments. Please read that because it really kind of gets into is humans remember aha moments more than regularly doing some great jobs. So if you're building products, if you're building experiences, it's a powerful book to kind of influence your design thought
I
process.
love that also because very fitting. I think this conversation has had many aha moments for me as well. On that note, Tapojoy, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation and for just so candidly sharing your journey. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everybody who's listening in will. Any last thoughts?
Thank you first for having me, Anna. I really love this. And my last thought will be is to anybody who's listening. Remember, career is a marathon. It is your marathon. It does not matter what the other person's speed or current status is. Just run your marathon. Keep enjoying the journey while it is happening for you. So don't bother about what others are doing.
Very, very sound advice. Thank you, Tapojoy. This was lovely.